Monday, August 10th, Pine Bluffs Town Council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Hearing a first and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The new business and action items are discussion building permit for 700 East 6th Street, permission to place a temporary connex on the property.
It was requested that we move this building permit to new business so that we could clarify and provide the customer with what our interpretation of temporary is. Will that be, on for a 6-month period, a year period, 3 years? Just so, again, so that we could just kind of get that finalized and have some clarification.
This is to hold building supplies and the like.
This is the customer whose shop burned down during the 4th of July weekend.
Yep.
And so I'm assuming that that connex is there to store the belongings that didn't get damaged during that fire while they reconstruct a new shop.
That was my understanding as well.
But I don't think we've received a building permit for a new shop yet. I would imagine the insurance process is gonna take a while and all that to get that all cleared up.
I guess my concern is if it gets put there, will it ever go away? That's my
Well, it's
concern.
already there.
Okay,
Oh.
well, so then will it
What are we
ever go
approving then?
away?
Well, first of all, you need to approve that it can stay there, but if we could just maybe give them an idea of what our expectations are for some kind of a turnaround on that so that we can relay that information to them.
Is there any precedent for this? Have we had anybody else that has put a connex on their property temporarily?
Unfortunately, yes.
Several connexes that were put out there were permitted in the past. There are some that were not permitted, but they're out there anyway. And moving forward, the goal is to not permit any connexes on a permanent basis unless they come to the board with some kind of a design modification to make it look more like a proper shed of some sort.
Are we mostly concerned about in the residential areas?
Correct, yes.
That's what my understanding was.
And I don't recall, I don't think this one is very offensive looking. There are some connexes out there that are all, rusty and beat up and somewhat of an eyesore to their neighbors.
So are we looking for like a 6-month kind of thing or a month?
Well, I think that 6 months probably wouldn't be quite long enough when you figure they probably do need to deal with an insurance.
And building, like, your
And then-
building season,
and then the
probably
building
we should
season.
give them a year.
I would think that, a year would be a reasonable amount of time, and then if something happens and they need to request more time, they certainly can.
I'm fine with a year.
I guess I would be fine with it too.
Me too.
I will move to approve the building permit for 700 East Sixth Street for a temporary Connex for 1 year.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second to approve the building permit for 700 East Sixth Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to visitor comments.
May I ask who seconded that, please?
Jenny.
Jenna did.
Thank you.
So, sure, you can approach the podium and state your name and what you'd like to talk about, and we'll go on from there.
Okay, my name is Randy Bigham. My wife, Becky, here with me tonight. We're at 310 Market. We had a couple questions on some things in the neighborhood, and we didn't know if this was a time to address it or how to find out how to put it on an agenda to be discussed at another time.
No, this is perfectly appropriate. Go ahead and.
All right. One, we've had a street light that's been out there on the corner of 4th and Market, kind of outside of the eye doctor's their corner. And that's been out since about, we're guessing about March, as far as we can recall. And we've brought it up a couple times when we've paid the bill here. Gosh, I forget who else we discussed it with, but I know Lauren has been, I've been in discussion with Lauren a couple times and mentioned that as well. Oh, that's what it was, when the crews came up and down and did all the gutter cleaning. Mentioned to them as well, and just still haven't seen anything, and that intersection is really dark at night. That was one, and then the other was our driveway. Well, I can't really say it's our driveway, it's the alleyway. On Market end of the alleyway, which connects, a lot of the crews use it for the electrical, going back and forth, and the trash truck comes through there. On the Market end, it's not, doesn't have like a formal driveway with concrete. It has a sidewalk, and then it's just the gravel. And especially with all the rains and all, it's gotten to be quite a dip, to the point where the front end of her car is dragged so much, the whole under piece that protects the motor and all under, needs to be replaced now. So we've started going out the back side. And now we've ran into the problem a couple times with them putting up that triplex back in there, where that's been blocked by construction crews. So we had asked, and I had a discussion with Lauren when he came out last week, about possibly seeing if that side could get the cement driveway portion that all the other parts of the alleys have.
There's no valley pan there?
No, Mayor, I can actually address both of those issues.
Okay.
Yes, so about 2 weeks ago, so before Trail Day, right before Trail Days, it was brought to my attention about the street light. And we had the guys go up there and look. We thought it was a quick fix, and it wasn't. And because Trail Days was coming, they were busy with that. So they are, that is on
awesome.
their list. They are tending to that. You should probably see resolution to that here within this week timeframe.
Awesome. Our concern was going into winter time with.
Yep, no, we
without
will get
dark.
that resolved very quickly. And as far as the approach to the alley goes, it is on the list for our concrete contractor, who is coming back at the end of this month to do more concrete work.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Lauren mentioned that might be something that might be happening, but he didn't know for sure.
Yes, yep, nope, we discussed it, and we just added it to the list of some concrete work that we're
Awesome.
getting scheduled for the end of the month. Because we have other jobs scheduled at the
Yeah,
end of
good.
the month.
It makes
We
total
just
sense
add-
to have
add
one
on.
time and get everything done, then
Yes.
back and forth and have.
Yep.
And so, thank you. Those were the couple things that were on ours, unless Becky had anything else. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Oh, in the future, if you just call the town hall and, you could just ask to speak, my name is Kim, and then we can get, issues like that resolved pretty quickly for you.
Okay. Yeah, when I've been in and paying the bill, whoever was here, I've been mentioning it to him. I didn't know exactly who to direct things to.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, have a great day.
Any more visitor comments? No? On to department reports.
Nothing.
We had an airport meeting on the 30th, and Kevin had apprised us that they had 500 operations, touch and goes at the airport. Touch and goes are landings or takeoffs. And for July, that's 2217 for the year. Sold 4,785 gallons of fuel in the last month, so a lot of fuel. Our price is fairly low compared to nearby airports. Probably the most interesting thing that we talked about was the fly-in that's scheduled for September 19th. That is a Saturday. That'll be from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's select breakfast that's free to the public, and there'll be airplane rides as long as we have time to give them. It'll be kind of based on demand, but you'll get a ticket and they'll call your name when you're ready. They hope to have a car show there, at least a small one, and some other things of note that are still in the works. But the plane rides are usually pretty popular, so you get to see some different planes and maybe a helicopter or a jet or something. Should be a good morning. So that's open to the public and it's free.
The one that I have is obviously the landfill has increased our trash rates, which were passed on to the town, so that's now been enacted and we're seeing the results of that. Other than that, nothing to report.
Nothing for me right now.
Nothing as well.
Prosecutions,
Prosecution.
the police are busy.
The only thing I have to report is liquor license stuff. I have all the liquor licenses in. The public notice was in last week's newspaper and it'll be in this week's. And then at our next meeting, we'll do the liquor license public meeting before our regular meeting. In case anybody wants to come and talk on it.
Is there anything new on the silent crossing?
No.
It's gone silent on you.
I told them, with budgetary constraints that we couldn't afford what they were wanting, so we will get back to them at a later date, I guess, hopefully, who knows?
Does the process that we've gone through to get to this point have to be restarted if it takes us a while?
No, I don't think so.
Do prices go up? Have they gone up, do you know, in prior years?
I don't know. I can look into it though.
Please do, because this
Yeah.
has been something that, it's been, I think it was, we started it with Alan Kim, so.
Yeah.
That process, or hope for it to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Where did it end up? What were they wanting?
I think the last time UP sent me a contract that they wanted us to sign, it was $10,000. And that's just for them to come out and say, yes, this can be a silent crossing. Basically. I mean, we still have to buy the signage to put up, which isn't bad. I mean, it's $1,000 maybe, but we can't go forward until UP puts their okay stamp on it.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about that is we thought that they had done that
Yes.
from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's what's frustrating about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was, from the beginning, it was designed as a silent crossing, and everybody was aware that the desire was to be a silent crossing.
Yeah.
The part that we didn't know was that UP, once everything was done, wanted us to go through a separate process, administrative process.
Yeah, extortion is what it is.
Yes.
That's all I have.
I am somewhat dismayed that I have to report that our water well levels are still increasing. So, we're,
Decreasing?
well, the level is,
Going
from the
down.
surface is
Surface water is
increasing.
increasing.
Yes. And that's pretty much across the board, while some wells are doing better than others. It's still a significant concern that they are not replenishing. And to compound that, although we have requested or put into place, I should say, water restrictions that we started in May, we have actually increased our water consumption over that of 2025.
Stands to reason.
Yes. So, again, I think we just really need to stress to our consumers that they should really focus more on not using so much water. And we have several customers that use in excess of 40,000 gallons a month.
Yeah, I'm one of those customers. I use nearly twice that much. And I'm just trying to keep a lawn alive, is all I'm doing.
Sure.
And I would imagine there's a lot of residents in the same boat. So, on the days that we can water, we're gonna water as much as we can, just to try and keep it up. And honestly, to do a good job, you need more than 3 days a week.
You know what's really sad about it is, one center pivot running consumes probably twice the volume of water as the whole town. So we have all the surrounding areas irrigating corn and crops that are really water dependent. Here the town's drying up and everybody's grass looks awful, and we're using a small fraction of what's being used by a single center pivot irrigating a quarter section of corn. That's kind of frustrating to me. Not that we can do anything about it, but
What's your, you're bringing this up because you're concerned that our water well levels are decreasing substantially yet. Have we been this low before, since we've been recording?
It has probably been it's been more than a decade for sure, but it's probably been since the early 2000s, Alex?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not a straightforward question.
Yeah.
Chris and I kicked this around last week for a while. And it, there's some wells that are holding their own, there's some others that are low this time and weren't before. Some of that's due to the aquifer, because we have a lot of Brule wells, and they're very capricious. Some of it is probably, we guess, because that's kind of what hydrologists do, may be related to the lack of discharge even as far away as the city of Cheyenne into Crow Creek. That's a pretty fur piece, but groundwater has a way of wandering And, I mean, you're right about the pivots. One thing you have to keep in mind on the pivots is that a lot of that water soaks back in and goes back into the aquifer. So it's not a one-to-one relationship between what's pumped out and what's actually taken. So it's really complicated. Municipal uses do have some priorities, and that's sort of the convergence of hydrology and law.
Now, the same would also be true of the water you're putting on your lawn then, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. That's not going into our sewer system.
But it does sometimes go on concrete, which evaporate more.
Yeah, it can do that. One would argue it becomes stormwater and drains, but we don't have any storms anymore, so.
But if it ends up in the
That's sort of a
lagoons,
thing of
then
the
some of it's
past.
leaching back into the ground
But,
too, so.
yeah, it's a difficult, problem to really get your arms wrapped around, because there's so many variables with that. And, I mean, we've had 2 major water fights in front of the state engineer in the last 8 years, and, we're still waiting for a decision in both of them.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they have trouble figuring it out too. But other than acquiring, property in wells, like we did with the north property, there's not necessarily a direct pathway to solving that issue other than to pray for rain.
Brain. Kim, do you think we need to start considering increased restrictions? Something we should start thinking of?
I don't think so. Looking at, kind of a random comparison of consumption from different levels of users, like those that are in the high end versus those that were kind of mediocre, and also taking a look at certain properties that we know tend to be very conscientious of their yards versus some of those that generally aren't as conscientious of their yards. I think that if we increase the restrictions, those that are conscientious are still gonna be conscientious, and those
Right.
that aren't as concerned are still not going to be as concerned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's really, I don't know that, we might hit a few in the middle, but I don't think it's gonna make, I don't think increasing that is going to make folks very happy. I also believe that maybe some of those folks, those that are higher users, when they see that we have adjusted, water is the only utility when we increased rates that we touched the consumption rate. And for the most part, that rate only changed by 25 cents per 1,000 gallons, which is not that significant. However, for those that use over 40,000 gallons a month, they are going to feel that burn through their utility bill a little bit. So that might be a little bit of motivation
Right.
to maybe, get into that next bracket lower. So, at any rate, we do need to just kind of keep an eye on that, and as Alex said, just pray for rain.
Absolutely.
If our pattern of no rain and no snow continues, or at least not enough to do any real significance, when is it a real problem where we need to do something, rather than just kindly say, please use less water?
Do you have a feel for what our head is on the wells? I mean, how much I'm looking for the number of feet that the static water level is above the pump.
I just know from the surface of the ground.
And that would require subtraction.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
You know,
I mean,
No, I
that's
get
what
you.
you need to look at is,
Unfortunately, I don't know the well depth of each
yeah, we
one
don't
of
know where the
wells.
pumps are. We could find that out, but that's what
Yeah.
that's what you really wanna look at.
Sure,
And I know people that are out in the boonies with me where the static water level is the top of the pump. And they're still surviving. But if that metric becomes thinner, you know, we have basically three options. Use less somehow. I mean, other than acts of God, of course. Use less. Drill more wells, or exercise our priorities, which wouldn't necessarily, the third choice is a little unpredictable, because, you know, you have to, you have to be able to connect the dots between upgrading users and the wells that you're talking about, and that's especially hard to do in the aquifer where we are. It's not a fun aquifer to figure out, so probably we'd be looking at going deep, going into Lance, Fox Hills, something like that, seeing if we couldn't, we've got a couple wells that go there. It's not the best water, but, you know, we can still dilute it probably with other water. And that hasn't been affected like the high plains aquifers that are above that. There's a pretty hard line between the deep wells into Lance and Fox Hills and the aquifers, the Shadron and on up into where we are. So drilling a well is always a possibility.
How expensive is that, though?
About 120.
Then to get all the proper treatment for that water if it's not as good?
yeah. So the last well that we, dug was well 10, that was a deep well, and that was about a $230,000 project.
Oh, was it that much?
Well, by the time, again, it was a deep well, but by the time you add in a lot of the additional costs
Oh, you had to hook it up and.
and all
kind of
that,
stuff.
yeah, because you
okay.
have to hook it up to your transmission lines. and-
Yeah,
you know what the depth of that was?
Guys are catching me off guard with these. I do not know off the top of my head. Let me see if I have it.
I know that you had previously shared with us data that showed how many feet the level had dropped, like in the compared to the same month the previous year.
I can tell you since October, our wells have all dropped an average of 6 to 7 feet. So,
And there was one well, I think it was this spring, that had dropped significantly more than the other wells.
yes,
Do you remember that one?
I believe it was.
I don't know if we knew if it was an anomaly.
Well, no, well 5's about 7 feet. It looks like, maybe well 1?
I think there was,
I
most of
think-
them were like 6 feet, and there was one that was like
Right.
70 feet.
Yeah, I believe that was, it's been corrected on the chart that I'm looking at
Okay,
now,
so maybe it was not
I believe it was
accurate.
just, it was inaccurate data
Okay.
on that particular chart. I can tell you that we currently have well 2 shut down for a period of time while we do more testing on it. Well 2 is a Brule well, so it's a shallow well.
but we might wanna start looking at you know, WWDC and see,
We are, yes,
at least, you know, get in line.
absolutely, yes.
In case we need to do that.
I think it helped me to know, like, how deep our wells are. And as Alex had pointed out, if we could determine where does the pump sit in relation to the water level, if that's information that we have or can get, I think that would help us to be able to maybe render some educated comments on the situation.
I would agree.
We could, we could get profiles on all the wells. That'd be kind of what you're looking at, and maybe, a historical comparison.
Yeah, that would be good.
Some xeriscaping.
It's, to me anyway, it's more about, the dynamic rather than the fixed numbers. I mean, obviously, if you're at the top of the pump, you're gonna be worried about that, but, you know, looking at the trend, the movement, and, you know, and looking at that in conjunction with the timeline, that kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed and when we might get there, and I think that's really what you're mostly should be concerned about.
You know, for the sake of our listeners out there, it's probably interesting for them to hear that, you know, the town during the months of June and July consumed 27,475,958 gallons of water. Of that, 18,470,000 gallons were residential use. So, in case there's somebody out there wondering, and that residential use of 18 million is divided up over 437 customers. So, in addition to our water consumption, again, for the sake of our listeners, I thought I would touch base on some of the items that have been frustrating our utility customers, particularly the rate increases, and some of the concerns that we have heard. I would like to address. For all of our utilities, I think there is a misconception that rates have increased due to the North Property project. And I would like to clarify that that is 100% not true. The North Property was funded by federal and state monies primarily. It was a combination of ARPA funds, which is a grant, mineral royalty funds, which also was a grant, a very low interest loan for which we received 50% principal forgiveness. And that did not affect our utility fund because we had paid off one other loan. And by adding this one, it just kept our debt balance approximately the same. Again, it did not affect our utility rates. And the other was left over from some of our savings and 6-penny funds that were voted on to be spent on that. None of the utility funds or utility expenses, I should say, are paid for using any of our tax dollars. So that's something else that people should be aware of, that our general fund, so the taxes that folks pay, basically are used to operate our general fund. each utility needs to be operated similar to it being its own separate company. They need to be self-sustaining, and they need to be financially viable. The trash company can't pay the water company, and the sewer company can't pay the trash company, and the general fund, which funds our police and ambulance and administrative and parks and recreation and the cemetery, that does not pay for our utilities. The airport does not pay for anything in the utilities. So again, they need to operate like their own companies. So whatever comes in has to be able to cover whatever goes out. The typical residential customer, their overall utility bill increased by $21. That was $6 for electric, $5 for water, $8 for sewer, and $2 for trash and recycling. In every case but water, the consumption did not increase. The consumption rate did not increase. For water, that rate increased nominally until you hit over 40,000 gallons of consumption, and then it increased more notably. The electric base rate, again, we'll start with electric, increased by $6 from $22 to $28. During the last billing cycle period, this was compounded by several other things on the average residential bill. The average temperature for the month was 9 degrees higher in July than it was in June. So folks are not only running their AC more, they're running fans. Their children are home from school, they're playing more video games inside because it's too hot to be outside. They're opening and closing their refrigerators more. All these little things add up to increased consumption. Additionally, due to some timing, the billing period for the month of July happened to be 6 days longer than the billing cycle in July, or 4 days longer than it would normally have been throughout the year. So normally our billing cycle is 30 to 31 days. It was 34 days in July. So the increase in days probably added an additional $24 compared to June, or an additional $16 and some change if you compare it to an average month. During the month of July, the town itself purchased 129,160 kilowatt hours more of power than we did in June. That's an average of 166.5 kilowatt hours per customer, which is approximately $22 per customer in average kilowatt usage, due to, again, the increased temperatures and a lot of other things. So, again, keeping in mind that our revenue coming in needs to be able to pay for all of our bills for the electric company, certain expenses increased. We purchase our power from the Wyoming Municipal Power Agency, and their rates to us increased by 8.15%. Property insurance increased by 17%. Natural gas costs increased by 7%. IT and program or application costs increased by 4.5%. And parts and material costs increased by more than 25% over the last 3 years. So, in order to reduce the overall increase in these expenses, we reduced some other expenses. We reduced the amount of wages that are applied to the electric company. We reduced some of our franchise fee costs. And we reduced some other costs wherever possible. so that we could keep the rate as reasonable as possible for our customers. So again, we are, always concerned about the welfare of our consumer, and our utilities are no different. We are still well below the recommended rate that our cost of service study provided that we should be at. But we will absolutely do what we can to keep our rates as reasonable as possible, in keeping with the law and making sure that our electric company can survive. Water, the base rate for residential accounts increased by $5 from 35 to 40. The base rate still includes 12,000 gallons of water. We're using more water than we did last year. So I think that again, because of the high temperatures and the dry conditions, folks may be using a little bit more than they normally would use, and they're starting to see that difference in their consumption as well. Combine that with increased expenses, again, electric. This is one example of where one department or one company pays another company. Because the water department is its own company, it has to pay for the electric that it uses. The electric to pump water from the wells, to pump that water up the hill, through the chlorination building, which also runs a pump, and into the tanks. The tanks then have to churn the water. We have to pay to pump water up to higher elevation residences. So there is an electric cost to operate the water department. Natural gas costs increased by 7%, property insurance by 17%, IT and program application costs by 4.5%, and parts and material costs by 25%. This is another department where, whenever possible, we try to reduce some of the other operational expenses to keep the customer increase as reasonable as possible. The sewer department had the highest increase, but it is also the department that has not had an increase in a very long time. That increased by a base rate of $8 from 15 to 23. The base rate still includes 3,000 gallons for residential customers, and there were no changes to the consumption rates. Sewer consumption is calculated annually in April, and it's based on average water consumption during the months of January, February, and March. For the last 2 fiscal years, the sewer department has operated in the red, and we were not eligible for any federal or state grants or loans because of that. In order to make some necessary modifications to our sewer infrastructure, we do need to be able to apply for and receive grant and loan funds for our sewer department. The same increases that affected the water department have affected the sewer department. So in a department that was already struggling, increases to electric and natural gas and property insurance and parts and materials all really compounded an already struggling department. We were not able to reduce any other associated expenses because we were already struggling, and we had already kept expenses in that department to a bare bones minimum. Trash and recycling had the lowest increase at $2 a month for residential customers. In addition to the property insurance increases and parts and material increases, the main driving factor was a landfill fee increase of 50%. No other expense reductions were made to try and offset that, primarily because we had that one huge landfill fee increase. So I hope for all those folks listening, or that don't have a chance to listen now, but that maybe listen at our YouTube video of this meeting, I hope that clarifies things a little bit. I have provided this information to Penny from the Pine Bluffs Post, and we will work together to get this information out there to residents so that they have a full explanation of the cost increases. The other concern that was brought before us was that, you know, we were trying to slide this by the customers, and I would like to just state to that we had, I would say, 4 or 5 public meetings where we discussed utility rates and changes and impacts. These meetings were advertised and the agendas were posted on our website and on Facebook. Prior to that, all meeting minutes were also posted on our website that went into more detail about those discussions. Our meetings, for those who couldn't attend, are available on YouTube. And before any rates went into effect, they were published in the Pine Bluffs Post. And the resolutions were available on our website and available here at the town hall. I think the only thing that we possibly could have done a little bit better was to do a mass mailing to every resident or every consumer. That generally comes with an associated cost of over $1,000, so we opted to just get it out on social media, because most of the time our general mailings from the town end up in the trash bin at the post office. So if anybody has any questions or concerns, I encourage them to stop by the town hall or just give us a call, and we will be happy to go through their bill with them to make sure that there isn't an error anywhere. And for any customer who thinks their consumption might be not what they truly used, we would be also happy to verify that through our system as well as out in the field if necessary.
Yeah, I think the information is really good, what you provided. Even though we went over this not that long ago, I didn't remember what the rates per tier were for water consumption, and having that listed is helpful. And, you know, it is what it is. I don't think any of us as residents are pleased that we have to pass along rate increases or have to pay rate increases, but at least with the information, we can make our own educated decisions about how to deal with that moving forward. So, thank you for providing that.
You're welcome.
Something that I wanted to mention is that the town doesn't arbitrarily just set rates. It's mandated by state statute that the utilities cover their own expenses. And so by law, we have to make sure that the rates that we're charging cover our expenses and the infrastructure and depreciation of the existing infrastructure. And that puts us in a situation where we're mandated by state law to cover the expenses, and we can't really shuffle the expenses of one utility to the other utility or overcharge on a utility so that we can subsidize something else in the town. We're really held accountable to the state in what the utility rates actually are, and it's not like we have a whole lot of choice about what we're doing with them. And when our electric rates are increased that the town's paying, necessarily we end up having to pass it on. Same with the landfill rates and all of the other rates. And unfortunately, it's where we are. We've had a lot of inflation in the last few years, and the town's done really well to try to manage the utility rates, but at some point, we've got to pass some of it on, and as you said, even to be eligible to improve the sewer system and the maintain the ability to get grants and loans, we have to make sure that we're operating not in the red, which the town has been operating in a state of insolvency on a lot of the utilities, and it's just not sustainable. So unfortunately, that's where we are. And I feel bad for the fact that we do have to pass this on, but it's a fact of life, and here we are. And I suppose the best thing, if you're hurting as a result of it, then do your own conservation, run your air conditioner less, consume less water, do what you can to curb your own consumption. And the town will do its best to try to keep expenses down and manage the utilities as best we can. That's all I had. You done?
I am.
Jerry, did you have something that you wanted to, I see that you came in.
Yeah, it won't take a couple of minutes, I'll be done out of here. I guess you all know who I am. I've lived here most of all of my life, except when I was gone to the military and stuff, so.
Please tell us who you are anyway.
I'm Jerry Sanders. And anyway, like I was saying, I've been here pretty much all my life, so what goes on and what comes up and affects this town is of interest to me. I watch your meetings on YouTube, that way I can get to the point and get done with it. But anyway, I was concerned about the data center business and all the stuff that's been going on in Cheyenne, and I realize now that I had, based on what I was thinking and what I've been saying, on misinformation. So I felt like I should come in and make a public apology to the council and to the mayor for any harm that I might have caused to the reputation of your being the leaders of the town. And anyway, it was dealing with data centers, and I realize now that there was no need for my concern, and I should have verified. I did my best to verify what I was hearing, but apparently I just didn't quite get to the right source. So anyway, that's all I got to say. I do apologize. Anyway.
Well, thanks, Jerry. And,
Thank you, Jerry.
and, we want to hear your concerns, and we want to know what you're thinking, and we do care, and we'll take it into consideration. So I really do appreciate you coming in and
Thank you.
and stating your business.
You can get back to your important business now.
I think we're about done.
Our next council meeting will be Monday, August 24th at 6 p.m. and we will have a workshop at 4:30, same day, August 24th. And we will do the liquor license public hearing before that meeting, so just right at 6, we'll do that and then go right into our meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
You can